Hello, hello! My name is Maddie, and this is the first episode of my new knitting podcast. I am calling this channel True Summer Knits. I decided to name it that for a couple reasons. One, I know a lot of knitting podcasters mostly make like sweaters and things like that. I'm not opposed to making a sweater, but I live in Mississippi where it's really hot all year round, so I don't plan on making many sweaters. I do more summer knits or cardigans, things that can kind of be worn all year round. The other reason is that I'm obsessed with color seasons and I am a true summer. So you'll see most of the yarn that I have and most of the things I make are in that true summer color palette. So this is just going to be your standard issue knitting podcast. I'm going to show off my finished objects, I'm going to show what I've been working on, yarn that I get, and talk about like any of my knitting plans that are upcoming. So I'm super excited to get started, and I'm super excited to post my first video. So I guess we'll jump right in. I'm just going to start with my first finished object. It's actually what I'm wearing today. Pull my hair back so you can see a little better. So this is the Robinson Wrap cardigan by Florence Miller, or handmade, is it handmade with Florence or handmade by Florence? Handmade with or by Florence. I love this pattern. It's so beautiful. It's definitely getting a little too warm for me to justify having made this now, which kind of sucks, but it's a nice little cardigan to wear like around the house when you want to feel cute, but like, you know, you're not going anywhere, which is like a lot of my days. So I made this. Let me grab the yarn. I made this out of Knitting for Olive, merino, and soft silk mohair. This is the yarn that is called for in the pattern. And I knitted this in the colors petroleum green. Both of these are petroleum green. It's kind of a hard color to photograph. Like, I think it looks pretty accurate in this, but it's basically, I would describe it as a dark emerald teal color. Like, it's emerald green, but it pulls very blue, especially in the sunlight. So it's a very cool toned emerald green. It's almost like a more muted emerald green, I would say. I honestly have a lot of issues with the way that Knitting for Olive photographs their colors, because I'm the only one that seems to think this, but based on the photos that they have on their website, I have no idea what those colors are. Especially, you know, they're known for having a million beiges and stuff, you know? Like, every single tone of white and beige, they have it. While I would love to have some cool tone whites and beiges or gray toned, but I cannot tell what colors their photos are, like their yarns are. They all pull really yellow to me, so I don't really know what color they're supposed to be. I wish they didn't put those filters over their colors, because I don't have a store that I can go buy Knitting for Olive at. I wish I did. I'd love to see the colors in person. I actually recently ordered some merino for a camisole that I'm planning on making. I don't actually have the pattern picked out, but I figured I'll make a camisole with it. I ordered some putty, and from the way I've seen it in videos, it looks like a beautiful color. People describe it as being like a blue-toned beige or a blue-toned cream color, and I would love to have that color, but the picture makes it look so yellow. I'll put up the picture so you can judge for yourself. But if I was looking at that picture on the website, I would think it's like a yellowy wheat color, which I don't want. I don't want anything warm-toned or yellow-toned. But I ordered it. I ordered 3 balls of it, and I think it'll be in this week, so I really hope it's actually a blue-toned gray, like people say it is. But we'll see. But thankfully, their darker colors are pretty accurate to what you see on the website. Like this, I feel like looks like this on the website, and this is what it looks like in real life. And I'm sure you and everyone else has heard about these yarns. They're like really popular in the knitting community. Everyone uses them. Everyone combines the merino and the soft silk mohair, and I love them. I think they're really nice. They're soft, obviously not as soft as like superwash merino. I am the kind of person that really prefers soft yarns, which is why I was excited to try their soft silk mohair, which I've never tried these yarns before. I didn't say that, but I've never used them before. I have used for my other project that I have complete today. I happen to also use Knitting for Olive, and I use their pure silk, but I'll talk more about that when I get to that project. But this was my first time using the merino and the soft silk mohair, and I really liked them. They work up into a very nice soft fabric. I am sensitive to yarn, so I wouldn't describe this as like completely non-scratchy or not itchy. It is a little bit, but the feeling kind of disappears after a little bit of wearing it. Like, I don't really notice it right now. It's not like that itchy. It's suitable for me to wear. And it's very close fitting, so if I can wear it and it's super close fitting, then it's really not that big of a problem. You know what I mean? But I do prefer very soft yarns, so I haven't actually used a lot of superwash, but I'm kind of thinking about branching out into using it because I do like the properties of wool, but a lot of wool is a little too scratchy for me. You'll never see me use like rustic wool. That's just not the kind of yarn that I use. If it's scratchy, I don't want it. I don't like working with it. I just love the feel of like luxurious yarns. That's actually why I'd really love to make something in cashmere. I've never even felt cashmere yarn, but I know it must be soft because everyone says it is. So I am really excited to get some and make like a nice cardigan out of cashmere. But I'm totally getting like off the track that I started talking about. So let's go back to this pattern. So some other details about this pattern. I knitted it to pattern pretty much, and I'll get into that a little bit. The body is knitted on 4mm needles. I use metal needles for everything. The ribbing on the arms and the long ribbing section in the body is knitted on 3.5mm needles. And around the edge of the v-neck is a double knitted button band. That was my first time doing double knitting. Florence actually has a really great tutorial on her YouTube, which I had to use to follow, because I tried to just read the instructions. A lot of times I feel like I prefer just to read written instructions so I can kind of figure it out for myself, and I'm really impatient, and I feel like videos take too long to watch. So I tried figuring it out, but I remember I just could not figure out what to do with the cast-on stitches. It's not done like the way you normally do like a button band, where you pick up the stitches, you knit one row all the way around the neck, another row, etc. until you're done. It's not done like that. You basically work every single column of stitches on the button band at once. It's hard to explain. You can watch her video to see what I mean, or if you've done it before, you'll know what I mean. It's kind of those instructions where now that I know what I'm doing, I could look at the instructions and I could work just from those instructions. Like if I needed stitch counts or something like that, the instructions make perfect sense to me now that I've actually done it. But having never done that before, it's really something I personally needed to see before I could actually sit down and do it. So I'm glad she had those instructions, because I don't know that I would have been able to figure out how to do it without the instructions. Actually, doing the double knitting was it was like the biggest headache for me for this process. Not because the double knitting was hard. Once I figured out how to do it, like I said, it was pretty simple. It's really no more difficult than just doing ribbing. Basically, you do ribbing, but instead of purling, you slip a stitch, essentially. So it's not that difficult. It's just time consuming because obviously it's double knitting. So for one, you're basically knitting 2 rows for every row that you're going to see. But the biggest issue that I had was, she specifies a pickup rate that you pick up for around the neck. And when I was knitting, I picked up every stitch. I knitted around this side of the button band first, and then it took me about 1 day of work to get from the bottom of the body to about the back of the neck of the first side of the button band. So then I picked it up the next day. I think that was a Sunday, and it took me that whole day to get almost back down to the bottom of the other side of the body of the button band. So I was pretty much done, and I was so excited. But the whole time I'd been knitting that day, I had noticed that the fabric on that side with the button band looked a little off. It looked a little puckered, or like it was pulling, and I couldn't tell. Like at first I thought maybe it's just the way I'm holding it, or maybe it just needs to be blocked, you know, or maybe it's wrinkled, I don't know, because I had not had those problems with the other side of the button band. Like this side of the button band laid perfectly flat. It was beautiful. I had no issues with it. But as soon as I got past the raglan on this side of the neckline, it started kind of puckering and looking a little off. I should have stopped. And that is the lesson that I learned from this. As soon as you see a mistake, you need to just stop and go fix it before you make it so much worse. You know what I mean? But I didn't want to do that, so subconsciously I tried telling myself that it would go away or it would work out. But I finally got basically to the bottom. I basically was done. And then I looked at it and it was just so puckered. I was like, no, I've clearly done something wrong. Like this is not going to block out because the other side doesn't look anything like this. So I had to unpick an entire day's work. I literally, like, it was not just like, oh, a couple hours, but that was all I did that day. Like, it was a Sunday, so all I was doing from when I woke up to like 6 p.m. was working on that button band. And I think at around 6 p.m. I just had to unravel it all, like basically the entire half of the button band that I'd done that day. And it was so sad. You know, it's just so sad to spend hours on something. Like, it takes you hours to complete this step, and then it takes you 5 minutes to unravel it all. Like, no time at all. It's so easy to unravel stuff. The knitting part is hard. That was really irritating. Yeah, after that, the button band, it got a timeout, and I went back and I finished the rest of the sleeves because I'd already done one. And then after that, that's when I felt ready to come back and finish the button band. And then I made the mistake again. And I'll tell you what my mistake was. I didn't get that far this time because I had learned my lesson. I basically did about that much continuing with the button band before I realized that I was making the same mistake. So I went back, I unraveled that little bit of double knitting I'd done, and I picked up the rest of the stitches, and that was when I realized what my error was. For some reason, I didn't make the error on this side of the cardigan. I don't know why, it was this side that I started with. I didn't make the error there. But when I got to the back of the neck and I was moving on to this side with the V-neck, basically, when you're knitting it, it's to create the V-neck every other round, I think it was, you're doing increases just to shape that V-neck. And so the increase stitches looked very tiny, and I was skipping a lot of them when I was picking up stitches. I don't know why I made that mistake on this side and not this side. I feel like the stitches somehow looked tighter on this side, and so a lot of rounds, I was picking up every other stitch instead of picking up every stitch, which obviously is going to create a very different look than if you did it correctly, like the pattern said. So this time I went back, I was very careful, I picked up every single stitch that I was supposed to pick up, and it worked out perfectly. But man, it was so sad just to keep picking up those stitches and unraveling it. It's just so frustrating. But I'm so glad I did it, and I'm so glad I didn't just, like, say, screw it and block it and just try to deal with it. I would not have been happy with it. So that's a lesson for you too, if you haven't already learned it. Just fix your mistakes, because you're going to be much happier than if you didn't fix them. Other than that, I knit the sleeves to the pattern length, which I kind of wish I didn't do that. I kind of wish that I had knitted them a little longer. It's not too short, and I do tend to prefer like the bracelet length, but I do feel like I wish they kind of came a little closer to my wrist bone there. But it's not the worst thing ever. I do like them. They just are a little short. I tend to have longer arms than people knit for. I'm just like a lanky gal, I guess. I don't know. But it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. I knitted the body to the same length as in the pattern, and that was perfect. It hits just right about my hips, which is where I like my shirts to fall. I'm 5'3", and you know, I said I was into color seasons. I also got into the Kibi system, which is like the body types, and I believe I'm a gamine. I thought it was a flamboyant gamine for a while, but I might be a soft gamine, but either way, the same qualities kind of apply. I'm short, so I prefer things either fitted or boxy, like not necessarily oversized, just kind of like boxy and cropped, or fitted and cropped. Because what's cropped on other people is not necessarily cropped on me because I have longer legs and a shorter torso. So shorter tops look better on me than longer tops. I like things to hit right about my hips, like my hip bones themselves, or just under my hips. So that was the length that she did in the pattern. I think she's around my height, so that was good. The only other thing I did that was a little different than the pattern was the yoke, and that was not necessarily on purpose. It was kind of an accident. So I don't know what I did wrong. I was knitting the yoke, and you know it's a raglan, so you're doing the raglan increases, and you're also increasing for the v-neck. And I was trying to keep up with the amount of stitches I knew I should have. And basically, you would get to a point where it would be like, okay, you have this many stitches, you're done with the yoke, split for sleeves. But I hit that number of stitches too early. So I don't know if I was doing too many increases, or I don't know how I did that, but she was telling me to split for sleeves with the amount of stitches that I had, but the yoke was not long enough. So it could have been either an issue with my row gauge, like it wasn't long enough because my row gauge was off, or I could have messed up somewhere and increased too many stitches. It doesn't look like I increased too many stitches, so I'm not sure what happened there. But basically, I multiplied the row gauge by the number of rows that she had told you to do in the pattern, so I could see how long she wanted the yoke to be. And I think mine was about an inch shorter than that. So I was like, okay, I don't want to unravel this because I would just have to start completely over. You know what I mean? I don't know exactly how or where to unravel to so I can knit this and get my yoke to be the correct length. So what I did was kind of a janky fix. It's kind of like putting duct tape on it, but it worked, and I don't think you can really notice it. I needed about an inch more of my yoke. So what I did, I stopped doing the raglan increases, and it didn't really affect it, but just right under the underarm, the raglan increases stop. I kept doing the v-neck increases, but since I was adding more stitches for the v-neck, and I didn't want to have more stitches for the body once I got past the yoke, basically every row that I needed to do increases, if I needed to do 2 increases, I would throw in 2 random decreases in spots so you couldn't really tell. I figured out that I should have been doing only knit 2 togethers because those were much less visible than if I did a slip-slip knit. There was no rhyme or reason to why I chose a slip-slip knit versus a knit 2 together. I think whatever the closest one, like whatever closest type of increase there was to what I was doing, I did like the corresponding decrease. Like if the nearest raglan increase was a knit 2 together, or I'm sorry, was like a make 1, was a left leaning increase, I would do a left leaning decrease. But I shouldn't have done that. I should have just only done knit 2 togethers because I didn't want you to be able to see the decreases, obviously. And you can see a couple of the slip-slip knits, but you really can't see the knit 2 togethers. And it's not obvious if you're looking at it. I can only see them if I go looking for it. And I did have the foresight to kind of put them in spots that you won't notice as much, like closer to the underarm or like in the back a little bit. But that was how I fixed it, because I wouldn't have been able to just do some rows of stockinette, you know what I mean? Because it would have tapered off the v-neck. And I needed, if it was just 1 or 2 rows, I maybe could have gotten away with stockinette. And I think she even says that in the pattern. She's like, if you need the yoke to be a little longer, you know, you could do just a couple rows of stockinette. But an inch, I was a little bit more than just a couple rows of stockinette. So I had to keep doing those v-neck increases so my v-neck didn't look messed up. But I felt that was kind of a pretty smart fix. You know, I mean, it's not perfect, but I felt like it was a good fix, like a smart thing for me to do, and it worked out. it does, I don't know if this is the fit of the pattern or if it's because of the fix that I did. I do feel like you can see it bunches a little around my armpits, and if I pull it down and kind of adjust it, it's really not noticeable, and I'm not sure if it does it any more than a regular top would. But you know, when you make something and you work on it for 20 days, you kind of notice everything that's wrong with it, you know? But other than that, it fits great. I love it. The last thing I would say about this pattern is that putting it on is very annoying. I will insert a clip right now of how you put it on, but basically, it's a wrap cardigan, or really a wrap top, because I don't think there's really much that you could wear underneath this. First of all, it is very difficult to get your hand around your body and hold it and get that cord through the tiny hole on the side of your garment. At least it is for me. It's really fiddly and annoying. It's so annoying that I thought I must be doing it wrong when I started putting it on, but I can't figure out any other way. Other wrap cardigans I have might have like the cord coming from this side, attached to the side, and you wrap it around from the back and tie it. Because I don't love the feeling of having a cord like wrapped tightly around my skin. You know what I mean? Especially with the mohair. It's not the worst thing in the world, but that's the only thing about this, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how much I love that. Oh, and I knitted the size B, which is like the small, and I used just over 3 skeins of the Knitting for Olive merino and the soft silk mohair. That does kind of suck. I wish I could have just kept it to 3. It does suck when you use just a little bit of that last skein, because like I said, I have almost a full ball of each of these, which if you have any ideas for any kind of accessories, or I'd love to even see if I can make like some comfortable house socks with, like, you can use mohair instead of nylon to strengthen socks. So if you know any patterns I could use to make like a DK weight sock with these, or maybe some hair bands, let me know, because I love this color and I'd love to make something that I could match my top with whenever I wear it. I also just wear this with jeans and my black Mary Janes. It's super cute that way and super simple. It's like elevated casual, which I feel like is my style. I never want to feel like I'm dressing like over the top or I'm trying too hard, but I also like to feel like there's just like that kind of natural effort, that put into my outfits. So this top really fits in my style, and I've just been wanting to wear it every day. Even though it's 80 degrees outside, right now, I don't know if I said this, I live in Mississippi, where it's super hot all the time, and it was cold from mid-December, early December, to maybe mid to end of January, and then I feel like what other people consider spring was our February. Like, it was in the 50s, 60s, sometimes it got a little colder, but it was really starting to warm up, and now it feels like we're definitely in the it's warming up. It's 80 degrees outside right now. I'm sure we'll get a couple of days in the next month or so where it's a little chillier, so hopefully I do get the opportunity to wear this outside. I do wish I had knitted this when it was cooler so I could really wear it out more. I'm really hoping we get some cooler weather where I can wear this outside, because I love this. This is probably one of my favorite things I've ever knitted. But we will see. Either way, it'll still get wear. It's really cute. It's really comfortable. The pattern is amazing. I recommend 10 out of 10. So I will go on to my next finished object, which I actually knitted this first. I finished this near the end of February, but I was wearing this one, so I figured I would just go ahead and tell you about it. But this was also knitted in Knitting for Olive. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is camisole number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and that is backwards. Let me show you. I will insert another clip of me wearing it, but it's very simple. It's just a tank top. I knit this on 2.5mm needles. The pattern calls for 3mm needles, but that is written for the merino, and she mentions the pure silk as an alternative, so it could just be that I was knitting, would it be looser, and I needed a tighter gauge, so I went down, or it could just be the difference in yarn that made me need to tighten up my tension a little bit. So I knitted this in 2.5mm needles for most of it, like the body and everything. The construction has you start with front straps. You do your increases and stuff to shape the neckline and the armholes, and then you do the same thing with the back, but you have a higher neckline, so it's a little bit less increases. And then you connect the 2 straps and connect under the arms and knit all the way down the bottom, the body. And then you have these edges on the armhole and neckline edges, which some of them look very neat, some of them don't look super neat. This is my first time doing this sewn edging, so you'll have to forgive me. But I read a lot of project pages on RAVELRY, and a lot of people had difficulty doing the sewn bind-off. Or not, I'm sorry, not the sewn bind-off, the sewn edging. So I was worried that I would have difficulty doing it, but I really didn't. I thought it was pretty simple. I mentioned earlier in the last pattern, handmade by Florence, that there were the instructions that she did for the neckline was kind of like the kind of instructions where if you don't know how to do it, those instructions probably aren't going to be enough. But these instructions, they were the kind where I read them and I felt like I had no idea what she was saying. Like my brain was trying to figure out the why and trying to understand it, and just based on the instructions, I really could not understand it. But I decided just to buckle down and do it anyway, and I just started. And as soon as I started, I just did what she said in the instructions, and it worked out perfectly. Like it made sense once you were actually doing it. So I feel like it's pretty simple, and maybe my brain works a little bit differently than others, but I feel like the problem is people are probably making it out to be more complicated than it actually is, because it was pretty simple. It's just time consuming. And then actually the knitting part is just stockinette, so that's not hard either. And then the bottom has a folded hem. You do, let's see, this will focus. Basically, you do a purl ridge halfway through the knitting, and then it's just knitted together with the body. So it's pretty simple. It's a very simple pattern in general. So I'll talk about the yarn that I used. Like I said, it was Knitting for Olive pure silk, and I do have actually almost 2 full balls of this left. I don't think when I bought this yarn that I had specifically bought it for this project, but I know I had a project in mind, and I actually cannot figure out what that project was, because I remember, like, my brain, when I was going to buy it, I was under the impression that I was going to have to hold pure silk double. So I bought 4 balls because that just, I've had this for a while, it was a while ago, and that just seemed to make sense to me at the time. Even though I thought I only needed 3, but I thought I might need a little bit extra, so I bought 4. But I didn't do that project, obviously. I didn't hold it double, and I can't think of any patterns that I know of where you would hold pure silk double. So obviously I didn't end up knitting that one, and I only really needed 2 balls. I used like just a little bit of the 3rd ball, but so little that if I was really determined, I probably could have gotten away with just 2. So I've got almost 2 full balls of this left, and I don't love this yarn, but it could just be that I don't love it for this project. I really don't know, so I don't know what I'm going to do with 2 extra balls of it, but I'll tell you why for a second that I don't like it. This was the first time I've also used the pure silk. I'm just now kind of getting into knitting for Olive, and I think my problem is just that this kind of yarn was never going to agree with me. It's not really the fault of the yarn. Like, there's plenty of people who love this yarn, and I should have kind of known what to expect when I got into it. For one, it looks very rough. Like the texture of the yarn when it's knitted just looks very rough, and it's not even so much the tension. Like obviously when you're working with some kind of plant fiber or like a natural fiber that's not wool, it's gonna show your tension a lot more than a wool would. Like a wool is gonna look a lot more even, and especially after you block it, it's really gonna even out. But those kind of plant fibers are gonna kind of show everything more than if it was a wool fiber. But I think what I hate about it the most is that it's got all of these little bits of fluff coming off of it, and I don't know if it's from like me handling the yarn while I knit it, because I don't see it in the ball of yarn. But when you knit it up into a garment, at least mine, it almost looks like it's pilling everywhere. I'll try to do a close-up of this so you can see, but it just looks like it's pilling. It looks like I've had it for a while and I've washed it a million times, and I've seen other people's knits with this yarn and they look cleaner and crisper, and mine really doesn't have that clean and crisp look. I don't think you can really tell on camera, but in person it just looks like I bought this used and I've washed it a million times or something. I really just don't like the way it looks. The color is beautiful. This is one of my favorite colors. The color is Dove Blue, and I would definitely knit something in this color, maybe with a different yarn. And I don't mean to say that I hate this. Like, I do really like this project. I think it's cute. I want to have more tank tops, but I don't know, I just feel like this yarn does not do anything for the project. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily take a bunch away, but it also doesn't elevate the project in any way. I feel like it would have been more successful if maybe I had just knitted this in merino or something. I didn't want to knit it in merino, even though, you know, with a supposed to be negative ease garment, the merino might have been a better choice, because I've never knitted a summer top in merino, and like I said earlier, I live in a very hot climate. In the dead of summer, we can have a heat index of like 115. It's absolutely insane. So usually I feel like what makes me feel most comfortable in the sun is just having as little skin cover as possible. So in that aspect, a summer top made out of merino might be fine, but I'm also worried that it'll be too hot. But I feel like I've never worn a tank top and thought it was too hot before. Like normally I just want as much skin uncovered as possible. So I'm a little nervous to spend, 2 weeks knitting a summer top out of merino and then find out that I don't like it, But I did that with this yarn and I found out I don't like it, so what's the harm? I bought some putty actually, Knitting for Olive putty, the merino that I was talking about earlier, and I'm going to knit a summer top out of that. So I'm just going to try it, and hopefully I love it, because if I can get away with wearing merino for my summer tops, I'd be so happy, because obviously they have better memory, they don't stretch out as much, they look more even, so I would love to be able to knit all my summer tops in a merino wool. But we will just have to wait and see. If not, I can definitely get away with plant fiber yarns, but I just don't think I'll use this one again, because really I feel like linen feels similar and has like a similar drape, like linen cotton blends, and I feel like it does not have this pilly look to it that this yarn has. And if anyone else has knitted with this and like doesn't feel that, or has had a different experience, let me know, because maybe I got like a weird batch. I don't know, but I just feel like it doesn't look that nice. Now, other things I have to say about this: the pattern is very well written. Like I said, everything, it was very clear. I really didn't have any issues with any part of the pattern at all. I do wish I had sized down. I knit size 2, or I don't know how she does her sizes, but I knit the second size, basically the small, and this is meant to have negative ease, like a good amount of negative ease, which is what I wanted. Like I said, I like clothes that are like tight fitting, because I feel like they look good on me. My bust measurement, I think it's somewhere between 33 and 34. It just depends on like the day, you know what I mean? 34 inches. And this pattern had an overlap in the sizes, where it was basically the first size was maybe like 30 to 33.5 inches, and the second size was like 33.5 to, I don't know, 37 inches or something like that. And so I really wasn't sure what size to do, but the first one, since it went down to like 29 or 30 inches, I was just like, that seems like it's gonna be way too small. But I was literally right on the cusp of both those sizes. And I didn't feel confident, and I figured I'd rather it be a little too big than like too small that I can't even wear it. And when I started knitting it, I would try it on, and it seemed like it fit great. Up here at my shoulders, I feel like it has the right amount of negative ease. It looks nice, it fits me well. But then once I get past the underarms and around the bust area, I wouldn't say it has positive ease, but I don't think it has negative ease either. I think it just has zero ease, or just somewhere around there. So it doesn't really give me that fitted look like I want it to. And especially around the waist. I can't really tell in her pictures if it's meant to have any negative ease around the waist, but it does seem like it's more fitted in her photos, and I feel like it kind of just hangs off me around my waist. So I wish it was tighter fitting. If I make this again, which I really like the design and the pattern was great, so I would love to make it again sometime, I would size down maybe, and I would definitely try it on around the waist, because if it is meant to kind of hang a little loosely off the waist, I'd like to add waist decreases, because I kind of like, I love these, like, you know, these kind of tank tops you can get at Walmart, Target and stuff, and I love the way they fit, so I'd love to have more hand-knitted versions of them, but I definitely want it to be more fitted. So I would size down and maybe consider doing waist decreases just to add to that fitted look. But I feel like it sounds like I'm really complaining about this. I really am not. I really love the pattern. I do like wearing it. Another thing that sucks with the yarn though is I feel like it's already somewhat stretched out, especially around these armholes. And now that it's already stretched out a little bit, I don't know if there's any point in me adding elastic. I don't know if that would fix it. I'm not sure. It's not so bad that I can't wear it, but I definitely notice it when I put it on, and I think I've only worn it out once. Like, I've worn it around the house a couple of times, but I really haven't worn it much. So I just feel like it's not that, plus the pilly look of the yarn, I just feel like doesn't look very polished, and it's definitely not going to look polished for very long. You know what I mean? But I do still like it. I learned a lot from it, and I love the pattern. So I will wear this, and I will probably make this pattern again sometime in the future once I've got a lot of other camisoles that I want to make out of the way. But that's about it for that pattern. That is 2 of my finished objects. I've got one more, got a pair of socks. And I'm not going to show them in super detail because I made them for my husband's birthday, and he has worn them a lot and walked around in them, and they look kind of worn just because they need to be washed. So, but I'll show you the stitch pattern on the cuff, which is like the main feature of the pattern. So these socks, they are kind of dirty. They're my husband's, like I said, they're not mine. But I will spare you the details. It's kind of stretched out because they've like kind of stretched around his feet. So I will insert a picture of when they looked all nice and pretty. You'll have to forgive the very unaesthetic cardboard that I took the picture on. But I'll show you the stitch pattern on the cuff. It's a really pretty stitch pattern. It was really fun to do. I think it's a 10-row repeat, and this pattern is called the Camping Socks by, let me tell you who it's by. The designer is Tania Barley, and these are the Camping Socks. I think she's got a lot of sizes for these. I don't know what the numeric size is that I chose, but the number of stitches that I did for my husband was 64. And it definitely seemed a little tight. They fit him now because they kind of stretch around his feet, but I do think I probably should have done a size up. I measured his foot, like around the circumference of the ball of his foot, and I picked the size that it said, but I definitely should have gone up a size. But he's not complaining, he loves them. It took me about a week. I really, like, it was very engaging. It was a very engaging knit when I first started because it was a very interesting stitch pattern that I hadn't done before. It's sort of like a broken rib, but it also incorporates these wrap stitches at the end of every repeat that almost makes it look like cables, sort of. I mean, obviously it's not cables, but it kind of has that look to it. And it's really pretty, and then I won't show you the bottom of the foot, I'll spare you the details. But the bottom of the foot and the heel is all done in garter stitch. So it makes this really like soft, cushiony bottom for your feet, and my husband loves them. Like, he loves the way they feel. He says they're like the most comfortable socks ever, because you know how cushiony garter stitch is. It's just pillowy and soft, and it really creates like a nice cushion for the bottom of your foot. The heel is a short row heel. This is actually the first pair of socks I've ever knitted, so I've never done any other kind of heel. But the short row heel is nice. I think it fits good around his foot, like around that area, and it looks really nice. The rest of the, once you stop knitting the cuff, the rest of the top of the foot is just done in that broken rib. It's like 3x1 broken rib, and they're really nice. I knit this out of Berroco vintage sock, which I don't think I would use again. I bought that when I was at a yarn store in Alabama. I don't actually have a local yarn store. I just was in Alabama, so I stopped at this yarn store. I think it was Mobile Yarns. And I was looking for sock yarn for him because I knitted these for his birthday. And I just grabbed this sock yarn because it was a pretty color, like it was the kind of color he loves. And just seeing the brand, it was Berroco, I just kind of assumed there would be like a higher wool content. I don't know why I didn't check. I just grabbed it. I was like, this is the perfect color. He'll love this. And it felt like wool. And it does feel and act like wool, but it's got a very high acrylic percentage. It's got, I think it's like 57% acrylic, maybe like 30% wool, and then the rest is nylon. And I don't love that. I would rather have knitted him something in a nicer quality yarn, but he still loves them and he's not complaining. But I probably wouldn't use it again for that reason. I just don't like using acrylic. I don't mind superwash, but I don't like acrylic, really. But yeah, I knitted these on, I believe most of it is knitted in 2.5mm needles. And then I think once you get around the foot, you switch to 2.25, if that's right. It was simple. I loved it. Once I got near the end though, I had gotten in the knitting for olive yarn that I used to make this cardigan, and I was so excited to use that yarn that the last sock just felt like a slog, because I would see my knitting for olive yarn and I would touch it and I'd be like, oh, this feels so nice, I just want to work with this yarn. But since it was for my husband's birthday, I didn't let myself cast it on until I had finished the socks. So I finished them pretty fast, and I started working on that cardigan. But yeah, it was really, but the pattern itself was engaging and was fun. I tend to be a monogamous knitter. If not monogamous, then no more than 2 projects. And the only reason I might have 2 projects cast on at once is like when I was knitting this, I had another pair of socks cast on for myself, which I actually can't show you today, and I'll tell you why. I got a dog, and the yarn that I used for the socks, it actually came in 3 25-gram balls. It was Cardigan United socks, and it was a really pretty color. The wool was a little rougher than I like yarn to be, so I didn't actually really love the yarn anyway. But we went out for like an hour to go to dinner, and she just fought with the ball of yarn. She doesn't like try to eat it, she just tears at it. And I tried saving it. I tried to ravel it back up with a wall winder, and I just couldn't. I hate detangling yarn. So I had knitted like maybe half of the first sock, and I just took my needles out, and I was like, nope, I'm done. So I just finished this cardigan like 2 days ago. And actually I've only knitted some swatches of my next project, because it was actually yesterday that I had to say RIP to my socks. So I don't technically even have any works in progress right now. but I will show you my plans and the yarn I'm going to use, because as soon as I'm done filming and editing this video, I'm going to finish swatching for my next project and cast that on. So I feel like that's my work in progress, even though I don't exactly have anything to show you today. But I will get into that, so let me get the yarn for that, and I will tell you about my next upcoming project. So, this is Sandnes Garn Tynn Line, which is actually similar to the pure silk, but to me it does feel smoother. The viscose content I feel like makes it just feel softer and more even, so I think I'm going to like it more than the pure silk. But I've only knitted a little swatch, which I don't even have because I just did it to just test the gauge, and then I unraveled it to put it back in the ball because I only bought 2 balls of these and I don't want to run out. The project that I'm planning on knitting with this is camisole number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I'm sure you've heard of it before. It's just a V-neck camisole with a, I think she says it's broken double rib. It's like a tighter fitting one. It looks really cute. I love her camisole patterns. Obviously, the other camisole that I showed you is by My Favorite Things Knitwear as well, if I didn't say that. And I'm really excited to make it. As soon as I'm done editing this video, that's what I'm going to do. I think that pattern is meant to be knitted on 3.5mm needles. I think I'm going to knit it on 3mm needles. I was doing some swatching, and I think I both get better gauge and I like the fabric better if I knit with the 3mm needles. But I'm not 100% sure, and if I do like the fabric that much better but my gauge is off, then I'll just knit it a different size if I have to, just because I want it to be like a tighter fabric. Like she has in the photos, she doesn't knit it with this yarn, she knits it with the pure silk. And I feel like the yarn, the fabric in that photo is just more tight and even than I was getting with the 3.5mm needles. But you'll definitely hear more about that in the next video once I've knitted more of the top and I've experimented with it. But this color is rose lavender. It's kind of another hard color to photograph, but it's a pink color, like a mauve color, that just leans ever so slightly dusty purple. It comes off very purple in this photo, but it's not like a lavender color. It's a rose lavender color, so it really comes off more like a muted pink mixed with like a dusty lavender. If you haven't heard of this yarn, let me just give you the stats on it. So it's by Sandnes Garn. The content is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. It feels very nice. I like that it's machine washable, because if I'm not using like a merino wool, I'd rather just use something that's washable for a summer top, you know what I mean? It's like I feel like if the yarn is super nice and luxurious, then I can get away with like hand washing it, just because you have to hand wash those garments more. And wool needs to be washed less. But if it's a plant fiber or something, I want to really like the yarn and it be machine washable. You know what I mean? Like to kind of make up for that. But this is machine washable, so I'm excited to make this. And I should only need 2 balls of yarn. I think I'm going to learn from my mistake from the camisole number 9 and just go ahead and knit the extra small in this one, because it also has the same issue where my size can kind of overlap, but I want it to be tight fitting. So I'm just going to go ahead and knit the extra small. So that is the next project I'm planning on casting on. Now I'm just going to go right into my acquisitions, because I do have plans for those yarns as well. So I'll just tell you what yarn I've gotten and what I'm planning on doing with it. And that will be our first episode for today. So, this yarn I actually got a little bit ago, but I'm still going to count it as an acquisition. And there's 2 patterns I'm planning on knitting with them. Not both, but one or the other, and I really cannot decide, so I'll tell you about it. So this is Ella Rae Eco Organic Cotton. I also got this while I was at Alabama at that yarn store, Mobile Yarns. It is this really beautiful, it's like a muted green. I'd say it's a little more saturated than like a sage green, which I like, but it's not like especially vibrant. It's just very, very in-between color that I love. It is a DK weight cotton. It feels nice. It doesn't feel too plant fibery, you know what I mean? I like it. I enjoy it. I haven't knitted a swatch or anything with it, so I don't know how it feels to knit up. But the color is beautiful. It feels soft. I don't often knit with 100% cotton, so I'm a little nervous to try it, but I think it'll work okay for the projects I have in mind. So here are the two projects I'm considering for this yarn, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would have to do gauge watching because obviously this is not the intended yarn for either of these projects. But the first project that I'm considering, and that I actually bought this yarn with that pattern in mind, is the Anker Summer Shirt by petiteknit. I do like that pattern. I like what people have created with it. I feel like since it's looser fitting, it being in cotton wouldn't be the worst thing. But I'm also worried it might be heavy, but I'm not sure. But I do really like that pattern, and if I do it, I plan on knitting it with twisted rib. You know, if you've seen the Anker Summer Shirt, it's a round yoke pattern with 3 rows of 1 by 1 rib, and you do increases so they're not like super centered. They kind of sit in different positions. So if I do that, I think I'm going to do twisted rib, or at least just half twisted rib, so the knits are twisted. Because when I look at people's project pages, I do love the design, but I feel like, especially with the yarn choices that people tend to make with, you know, this kind of shirt, the ribbing can look kind of messy, especially the knits. The knits can look kind of gappy and just kind of off. So I haven't seen anybody else do twisted rib. I tried looking through the project pages, but I just feel like it would look really nice. I don't know if it would affect the way it falls or sits or anything, so I'm definitely gonna have to just test it out and see if it works before like fully committing to it, assuming I do this project. But if it works out, I think that would make it look a lot neater and like really nice, and I'd be happy to have that project. Now the other top that I'm considering knitting with this is the Margaux top by Gregoria Fibers. So it is a sleeveless top. It's kind of like a boat neck construction, and it's got this like patterned lace rib on it that is really beautiful, and I've loved that top for a while, but I only recently considered that I could probably make that with this. I feel like that top is maybe a little more structured, so might suit the kind of heavier feel of the cotton, and I kind of feel like I like it better than the Anker Summer Shirt, but I'm really not sure. I would have to do, because technically this pattern is supposed to have a 21 stitch gauge, and this is a little bit closer to a sport weight, but I feel like I could get the gauge specified in the pattern, which I think is 21 stitches, or I feel like I could just kind of, you know, mess around with size, or I could do a little bit of math and make it work, you know what I mean? But I really like that top, and I feel like it would look beautiful in this color. It would go really nice with like some nice light jean shorts, and I could find like a sock yarn that matches this color and like wear it with my sneakers and like knit socks that are in a similar color and like match them, you know what I mean? I feel like that'd be a really cute summer outfit. Now I'm kind of convincing myself. I feel like I'm probably going to do the Margaux top. I don't know when I'm going to cast this on. I definitely want to get started with my camisole, but that is an upcoming project that I have in mind with this yarn. So I will move on to my other acquisitions. I got some sock yarn, so I will show you that. I definitely do want to cast on some socks soon. Like I said, I was knitting the other socks with that sock yarn that my dog murdered. That, I never told you the pattern. That was actually supposed to be the petal drop socks, also by Handmade with Florence. Whenever I got the pattern for this, she had those socks as like a free pattern, so I just grabbed them as well. And I needed something to knit whenever I was going somewhere that I couldn't really bring along, like a whole cardigan and 2 balls of yarn. So I just cast on those socks, and I was knitting them very slowly whenever I went somewhere. But I'm not knitting them anymore because my dog did kill the project. And I don't even want to look at that pattern right now, just because it kind of brings me bad memories from like losing all that work. So I do have plans for these 2 sock yarns that I'm about to show you. I'll tell you the patterns. I don't know which order I'm going to cast them on, but we'll get started. So this first yarn is Valley Yarns Huntington. Valley Yarns is the in-house yarn brand of Webs. I get a lot of my yarn from yarn.com. and that's like their yarn brand. This yarn is so soft and fluffy. Like I said, I'm a sucker for soft yarns, and I know that I'm gonna love this. So it is 75% superwash merino wool and 25% nylon. I did get 2 hanks of this. I just have one. I've already winded one up into a ball, but I haven't wound up this one yet. And it is this beautiful like mauve color. It looks a little more purple on camera, but I'd say it's more pinky in real life. It's like it's very true mauve. I think the color is even called mauve. The color is 0021 mauve. And the pattern I'm planning on making with this, is Fairy Maiden by This Handmade Life. She has got lots of free sock patterns that are super beautiful. The other socks I have in mind are actually also by this person. I don't think she gets her patterns test knitted, or I don't think she even has different options for size, but I feel like with socks I can make it work. I think in this pattern the only stitch count she has is for 64 stitches, so I think that would work fine for me. But if I really wanted to, I could probably just size down my needles and do 2.25 instead of 2.5, and that would probably make a little bit of a tighter fit. But when I first put on my husband's socks that were 64 stitches, they fit fine. I feel like with socks, you have a lot of flexibility, you know what I mean? But this pattern is, it's a cable knit pattern. It has these little cables that look like little exits, you know what I mean? I'll put up a picture, obviously, but they're really beautiful, and her sample is actually knit in a pink color very similar to this, and I just want them so bad. So I definitely want to knit those. I've never knit any cables before. I did get some cable needles, and I feel like a sock pattern is like the perfect opportunity to kind of try out different techniques. And I think these are pretty simple cables. They're not like a ton of cables, so I feel like it will be a good opportunity to try out that skill. So that's that pattern that I'm planning on knitting at some point. And the other sock yarn I got is this. It is this beautiful light blue color. It's a little bit more muted in person than it is on this camera. This is Cascade Yarns Heritage. This is also 75% superwash merino wool and 25% nylon. I got one hank because this comes in 100 grams. And it is beautiful. I'm also planning on knitting another pattern by This Handmade Life. These socks are the wood nymph socks, and these are a slightly simpler pattern. So a lot of it is stockinette, but then it also has basically a line going down the sock of this pretty lace pattern. The sock is so beautiful. I don't know how the construction is on either of these socks. I haven't looked at the pattern. But this pattern is also free, and it also comes in one size. It's like a woman's medium, but I feel like, again, I can make that work for me. This pattern is also supposed to be knitted on 2.5. I think I probably will end up just doing 2.25 for both of these patterns, just because I have smaller feet, so I feel like that'll be a good compromise. But yeah, so that is the sock yarns I've gotten. And the last yarn I have, and the last upcoming project that I have planned, is a very simple one. Let me show you. So my mother-in-law, she's a wonderful lady, and she watched this YouTuber who had somebody in her family hand knit her these garter stitch squares, basically, for like an exfoliating washcloth. So she asked me if I would do it for her, and of course I would. So I bought this. This is the Knit Picks. You're not even going to be able to see that label. This is the Knit Picks dishie worsted weight. It's just cotton yarn made for like dishcloths and washcloths and stuff. So I plan on just knitting a few garter stitch squares out of this. Maybe just as many as I can get out of this 50-gram ball. I don't know how many there will be. But it's this beautiful hot pink color. Favorite color is pink. So I am going to knit these for her slowly over the next couple weeks or so. I'm waiting for some yarn to come in for a baby knit. I'll talk more about that next time. So once that yarn comes in, I'll have to prioritize that project because I do have a baby shower to go to in April. But I think it'll be quick and easy for me to get these garter stitch squares done. But other than that, I think that is everything for today. I know I technically didn't have any works in progress to show you, but by next time I might even have that project finished and we can talk about it next time. I'm so excited to be posting. I really hope my knitting has inspired you some, or I hope you got to at least get some knitting done while you listen to this. If you enjoy this video or you like my personality, I'd love for you to subscribe, comment your thoughts, and hopefully I'll see you in a couple weeks with another video. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.